We're recording. Okay, hey, if you guys are watching this video, I got Ken here and myself, Justin. We wanted to make a demonstration video how to play to help describe the basic mechanics of RuneWars. We're pulling things from the basic set from the RuneWars game, as well as Ken brought his Uthuk. We wanted painted models. His army Uthuk was painted. He just went to the basic core set, no upgrades. For those of you who are familiar with the game, you can use this video maybe to, as you recruit new players, to kind of demonstrate the mechanics and and just to show, maybe if you got somebody coming in and like us today, we're about to do a tournament tomorrow, an event, and there's 2 new guys coming, so I wanted to record this today, put it on the video, have them be able to watch it, and that way they kind of come in with a little bit of an idea how to play, and they're not kind of in the dark and we have to explain things. And that is just a way to kind of get people into the game quicker, as well as help them get their feet wet. So so basically the purpose of this here is that we're doing the standard skirmish scenario. So those of you guys that are new and not following us, the game has objectives and deployments. Now we're not doing a specific objective. This is pretty much smash mouth, kill each other. But it should be very important to note that there's more to this game than just smash mouth, kill each other. That there's an objective, usually that just kind of changes the dynamic of how the game's played and such. We don't want to get that complex, so we're not doing that. However, this is the skirmish scenario, and this is actually very small time. We're only about half the points. A typical RuneWars game is going to be about a 6-foot by 3-foot area. So that's like 2 of these mats that you see down here. And then here, in this case, the skirmish is like just a 3-foot by 3-foot area, and you have this blue deployment zone, the red deployment zone, and as you see right here on the bottom, that's kind of how we're set up. And Ken and myself just went ahead and deployed the models in place. We did not really have any thought, but there is an actual deployment part of this game too, to where each side takes turns putting a unit down, so you kind of see what your opponent's up to as you try to strategize and plan, which becomes a very important part of the game too. Because honestly, if you play in a tournament or you play any kind of friendly game, you'll find that this game really starts at the setup and deployment, and it literally it does. And like you can lose the game at that moment if you don't have that knowledge of it. But that also takes practice. So the purpose of this here was just to show you the game mechanics, how it plays, how it functions. We also wanted to throw in a little bit of terrain. So right here we have a swamp, and then right here we have a rocky outcrop. Now, one thing to throw about the swamp and the rocky outcrop, you'll notice in the upper right corner is there is a tray kind of symbol, which this represents how many of a tray of a unit can go inside this terrain. So right now, for both, in the case of both the swamp and the crumbling wall, when we were using the swamp here, we can only have up to a 2-tray figure. So that means that, yeah, so basically 2 of those. Thank you, Ken, for showing that. So 2 of those trays. So an example of that would be like my cavalry right here, 2 trays. His flesh rippers down there are a 2-tray. So our 4-tray units, such as the spearmen and his berserkers, would not be allowed to enter this terrain. So just wanted to throw that out there. In addition, every single piece of terrain, and it comes with collecting the core sets. It comes with buying the character figures. They come with a piece of terrain, and they all add a new rule. And let's see if I can get that in the camera here. It says expose and taxing in the case of swamp, and we'll go over that. Expose basically means that it doesn't block line of sight, so units that have that can shoot over it. And taxing means that you'll take a panic by entering into that terrain. So, and we'll go over the panic and explain that mechanic as much as we can. We're only going to be playing this for about 3 rounds at the most, or to time, so that. Again, the goal was to get the basic mechanics. So since we skipped past the deployment and the setup, everything is as is. We're going to go right into the game itself. And just in case you guys want to know the kind of units we have, here I have a special character known as Carry Wraithstalker, and across the equivalent from the core set.
You do yours, I'll do mine.
Well, okay. So here I have a 4-tray unit of spearmen. No upgrades. Upgrades become a big part of the game too. So there's more than meets the eye to these units when you start putting upgrades. They start to add to the combat effectiveness with the upgrades. Just so if you get into this game, just be aware that we are playing bare bones, naked, just the units right out of the box kind of deal. Now, and then here I have a rune golem, very tough, Not the most mobile, kind of very predictable as how it moves, as a matter of fact. But when it gets stuck in, it can hang in there for quite a while. And then here I have a unit of cavalry, which hard hitting, very fast, etc. So that's my basic layout for this army here of my Daqan. I'm going to go ahead and pass out to Ken to explain his army real quick.
Yep. So on this side, I've got this is my cavalry unit, and that's a 2-tray of flesh rippers. Right here in the center is my core infantry unit. That's the berserkers. It's a 4-tray unit of those. Right here to the left, I have my special character. That's Ravos the Ever Hungry. And again, there's no upgrades on these guys. And then off to the left, I've got my my kind of big siege unit. That's the Spine Thresher. So that's my setup. That's my core set. That's what comes in the Uthuk army expansion. So we're going with just whatever comes in the base game with the Daqan and the base game with the army expansion for Uthuk.
Yes, you're good. Okay, so what is going to happen here is that we're going to start the game off. Now, again, as I mentioned, we skip in the setup. We kind of went right into it, but keep in mind that there would be a whole setup and the deployment part of this game. And since we're past that, now we're going to the game itself. So it's pretty much, hey, a shake hands, good luck kind of deal. Just be a good sportsman when you play. And what we then do is we're going to go break it down into phases. Now, Ken and myself played a number of games, so we have it pretty we have it in our heads. We kind of know how it goes step by step. But we are going to slow it back and try to explain step by step what's happening so that you can better follow along. Now, command phase is the first phase of the game, and that is the command. In the command phase, that's when we are going to be programming our dials. This is our way of telling our units what we want them to do, and it happens simultaneous. Ken will put his down, and I'm going to be putting mine down, just like so. Now, notice that I've got one side that is basically blank. It just shows the unit's defense and health and what kind of unit it represents on this dial, and the other side has all the commands. They have the main action side and then the modifiers side of the dials. And I'm going to pull that up here. This is an example for the cavalry. So this cavalry one should go over here because this is for my Daqan heavy cavalry. Now, because the facing here, Ken doesn't see what I'm programming. So that's kind of the part of the game that's kind of really fun, that fog of war aspect where when my opponent's putting dials down and I'm putting dials down, we're trying to guess what each other's trying to do, and then we activate. And everything's happened simultaneously. So there's no way for him to know what I'm programming down, and same vice versa for me to what he's programming down. And therefore, I have to kind of get an idea what he might try to do or what he's trying to do as force based on how he positioned his guys and what kind of composition of his guys are. So that's the command phase. Now, after we do the command phase, we're going to go into the activation phase where we actually step by step reveal our dials. Now, every dial, when you do an action in this game, goes by an initiative number. So if you see the white number on each of the dial on the action side, that is the initiative number that the unit is going to move by. And so as the game goes, and we're just going to say for argument's sake that Ken, you're going to have initiative this round, so you're going to be the first player.
Okay.
But and so what he's going to do is call out the numbers in the order. So if he has a number in that order, so we'll start at 1, and if he has a unit that will move at initiative 1, he's going to activate it. And then he gives me the option to activate a unit 1. Now, the good thing about this game is that the first player changes every round. And so we'll show that function after 3 turns. But basically, there's advantage and disadvantage from going last and first. You know, that it's it's just a matter of how to play it. But just keep in mind that that's the activation phase, and then we'll resolve each unit's command. And we keep going through the activation phase, going through the initiative number from 1 to 10 until all units have activated and moved. Once the activation phase is done, then we're going to move on to the end phase. The end phase is pretty much wrapping everything up. Any kind of game effects that would happen in the end phase will take place. We will recast the runes, which, by the way, we'll recast for this first round just to show how that mechanic, because the runes become this energy, this kind of magic energy that might change how your units might, the power of units or their abilities of the units, which makes it a fun little kind of unpredictable dynamic. And so both something that you kind of plan around, but also have to understand that it's unpredictable, so you can't always plan it. So it makes it, but it adds an element of unpredictability, which, you know, any kind of real war situation is full of unpredictability, and that's why it's such a great thing. So we're going to go ahead. After the end phase happens, we'll announce that we'll turn over the turn dial, and essentially the turn dial it is going to be in right now Ken's hands because he is first player. And so once he's done, he'll go to me. And then once the end phase is done, we go to the next turn and restart the whole phase as we go. So it goes command, activation, end phase. And we keep on playing until 8 turns get fulfilled. After the 8 turns, you tally up the victory points. Victory points happens based on the cost of the units, which we can maybe do that after 3 turns and just kind of explain how that works. But also there's like I said before, this game has objectives, and sometimes objectives give you victory points, and that becomes also a changing dynamic of the game. So anyway, let's go ahead and go to the command phase. Start of the command phase.
Well, you want to flip the runes? So
yes, I'll go ahead and flip the runes for this first round.
So that's the first thing that's going to happen is you got to get the runes flipped, because a lot of these dials might have some action that's affected by what runes show up. So before you even want to dial up your commands, you want to know what runes are in play. So the first thing you do is you flip those runes, and then we'll move on to actually working those dials. What do we have?
Now so for the runes we have 2 red runes, and that is the unstable runes, and then we have 2 green runes, which are your natural runes. Kind of various nature effects or anything that uses, that would be like wind or the elements would be a natural rune. The blue is your stable runes, and then what the one thing now in my army, the only thing I really care about are the red runes, because that will actually determine initiative and speed of this rune golem here based on my stat, and also the blue rune I care about because that actually increases his defense and other abilities. So the blue rune actually also increases his offensive ability as well. So those are the things I care about with the rune in regards to the rune golem. Do you have anything in your list that is affected by runes?
So yeah, I've got a number of things. So I've got my main character Ravos. He's got on his dial, he can actually move on initiative 4. He can move however many of these unstable runes are shown. So right now there's 2. If I dialed that up, he could move a distance of 2. And this is one of the beautiful things about this game. I'm just going to do a little sidetrack here, but you can throw your tape measure away because this comes with these templates right here. So it's super easy to actually determine how far you'll move. And you'll see that this has 2 on it. So when I was just talking about dialing up a 2 move, I just grab this template here, slide it up to my guy, and I can move. And you'll see us do that throughout the game.
Yep.
But unlike other tabletop miniature games, all the movement is all predetermined by these templates, so you don't have to worry about getting a tape measure out and fiddling with it.
Yep.
So that's one of the beautiful things about it. Another unit that we've got is the Flesh Rippers. I think I showed it to you just a second ago, but they've got a movement as well that's affected by the unstable runes. This faction tends to like unstable runes. On the Spine Threshers on the card, it has a special ability that after I activate, I can take my there you go. I can take this range ruler here, and I can measure from this unit to whatever distance of those runes are showing, 2, so 1 to 2. If I'm close enough to one of these units and I overlap, I can give them a panic token if they don't have one, and that augments them with allowing them to do some rerolls once they get into combat. So that's a good thing. I think that's all that's affected by the runes on my side. Yeah, I don't see any other. Yeah, there's nothing else. So just the Spine Thresher, Ravos, and the Flesh Rippers here are affected by it. Once you start adding upgrades, though, some of those upgrades will actually play off those runes. So that's something that as you're putting your army together, if you're heavily leaning towards unstable runes, maybe you want to look towards upgrades that are going to keep with that theme.
Yep. And it should be mentioned too, earlier you were putting the templates out. Now the key thing about those movement templates that we are going to be using today is they can only be used when it's the time of that unit activating and actually moving. So the one rule though you can use this rule at any time and pre-measure. So that I just want to make sure that's distinctions there. Now where you might pull it out during this game early on just to show our demonstration and point things out as we play. So going forward, command phase it is. Let's go ahead and program dials.
All right. We'll show you these as we activate rather than as we set them, and that way you can see how the initiative order plays out. Okay, I'm all set. Are you all set?
I am good to go. So you called the initiative numbers first.
So I've got the I've got the initiative because I've got the turn dial.
So just to make it clear, that was our command phase where we programmed all the dials. Neither of us know what the other one's doing. And then we are moving into the activation phase. So go ahead, Ken, call it out.
All right, so basically the activation phase I'm going to call from numbers 1 through 10. And if we have a unit, we're going to activate on that initiative. So when I call out a 1, I say, do you have any 1s? And if Justin doesn't have any 1s, he's not going to go. If I have a 1, I have to go first. I don't have any 1s, so I'll call out. I'll look at my dials. I don't have any 2s, so I'll call out a 2 and say, do you have any 2s?
And I don't have any 2s.
So Justin has no 2s. So we move on. So like I said, we go 1 to 10.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and get to it until we hit one of these dials. I have no 3s. Do you have a 3?
I do have 1 3,
All right,
and so I will start by rallying my guys. I'm trying to gain now. Rallying is a 3 for the Daqan here, the spearman, and so I have. You'll notice that I have a 3 rally. That's that horn symbol, and then there's a +1 in a shield symbol. So basically, what I just did was up their defense by 1, and I rallied them. Now, rallying is great in regards to getting rid of banes. So and there's a lot of banes in this game, a lot of effects that basically kind of debuff your guys or make them less effective, and make them not be able to use certain abilities. So being able to rally those off is a big deal. The problem is it does take a turn to do a rally. Now the plus side is about rally 2 is that if you don't have any banes on you or any cards that are exhausted that you want to put in the upgrade, that's the upgrade cards by the way, then what you'll get is an inspiration token. So that's what I'm going to give them. Is an inspiration token, and this is known as a boon. And this is basically what it looks like. And that inspiration token is going to help my guys later if I start getting panic and things like that, assuming I can activate and spend that inspiration token in time. So that's what I did for my 3. Go ahead.
Okay, so like I said, I have no 3s. So if he has any other 3s, he can go ahead and resolve those.
I have no more 3s.
No more 3s. So I do have a 4, so I'm going to move for a 4 here. I'll show you the dial. So I dialed up the 4. For Ravos here, it's a forward move, the number of stable runes. So I did that on purpose so that I could actually show you how that two move works. So again, most of these have 1 rune on them, with the exception of the unstable runes. The unstable runes actually show 2 runes, so you count both of those. So it's not just 1 chip, that's 1 rune. It's two triangles on there, that's 2 runes. So I'm going to go ahead and take my movement template. I'll slide it in here next to Ravos, and I'm just going to move him up 2. Now the other thing that you might have seen is just like Justin had done, he had added a +1. Well, I did the same thing, but guess what? I dialed it so that it's the wrong color. So what that means is the stance doesn't match. They call these colors stances. When the stance doesn't match, it doesn't work. So this doesn't do anything for me. The only thing I did was I moved forward. I didn't want to turn, I didn't want to charge, and I didn't have any skill that I wanted to perform. So I just went ahead and dialed something, and basically I'm negating this side. I just did the movement there.
Good.
So that's Ravos.
That's a good distinction. It's very important that you got to think about that stance side, because you'll get that benefit of the stance if it's the same color, but also if it's like a bonus action something like that, you still have to proceed with it too. All right. So
do you have any 4s?
I do have no 4s.
No 4s? Okay, I am done with 4s, so I'll move on to a 5.
Okay.
All right, my 5 is a Spine Thresher. He's going to move forward 3. And then on the right side, that's the action dial, forward 3. On the right side, he's got a modifier, which is a movement 1. So he's essentially going to move twice. He's going to move 3, and then he's going to move 1. White matches with any of these colors over here, so this actually will augment this side.
White is wild, just remember that.
It's a wild card.
So
right?
It counts as any color you want, so you don't have to have it match in the main dial.
So I'll do the first side, which is going to be a move forward 3. And you can see, you just line that template up, and slide, and it actually notches right there into place. So that's a perfect 3 forward, right?
And then you'll have to do a 1. Since
This
this is known as, on that modifier side, since he dialed a 1 march, it's known as a bonus action. So basically allows you an additional movement or an additional attack or something like that. It doesn't, instead of modifying your action, you're just getting another action in that round, that activation.
So in those 2 activations, you were able to see the 1 template used, the 2 template used, and the 3 template used.
There you go.
All right. So that's all the 5s I have. Do you have any 5s?
I do have a 5. And so back here, now this one's a little bit different than the March. If you note, I got the crossbars. I got a green with carry. I've got a green. This is known as a shift. This means that I can shift that number, if you see that 1, either forward, backward, left, right, up to a distance of 1 in this case because it's a 1. And I have a +1 defense for her. So she just plussed up her defense just like the spearmen earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my 1 template and perform a shift. Now I'm looking at, while this is not trying to be competitive, we just want to throw things in, I'm looking at him. I know these guys are very fast and they're going to get at my grill. So I want to maybe shift to the side a little bit so that maybe make it harder for him to kind of turn around and try to charge me later on. Or, that thing. And you'll find that maneuvering aspect of this game really comes into play and trying to predict what other units can do and how they can reach you and maybe trying to thwart that. So that's my 5. Ken, go ahead, continue.
Give me the old ole. So that's a 5. I don't have any more 5s. Do you have any more 5s?
I have no 5s.
Okay, so I'll go for 6. The 6 is going to be my berserkers here, and they're going to be you can see the initiative 6, move forward 3, and a move forward 1. So we're going to truck them along just like we did the spine thresher a second ago. So I'll grab the 3 and I'll grab the 1. I'll slide this up here, move them forward 3, and we'll move them forward 1. And you can see there's a little bit of bumping that happens. Don't get too concerned with that. You want to try and be as precise as you can, but everybody kind of understands, and it's even in the rules that that a little bumping will occur. So just be as precise as you can with those movement templates and get your guys into the position that you set. Okay.
All right. So that was your 6.
That was my 6. So do you have any 6s?
I have no 6s.
All right. So we'll keep going. Now with this last unit that I have, I do have a 7 that's dialed up. Before I reveal that dial, they have a special rule, and I'll show you the card here. So the special rule reads,
I'll hold that for you.
Before you reveal your command tool, you must perform a speed 1 march. Okay? You see, I don't know if you're able to read that or not.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're gonna. I mean, it's somewhat there, but I think just you read it verbatim will help.
So there you go. You got to kind of pay attention to what your cards say, your unit cards say. So I'm going to do that speed 1. It's a required movement for these guys. So I'll do a speed 1 forward march. There it is. Now I'll reveal my dial. My dial is set to a 7 initiative, move forward 3, and then the modifier is set to a move forward 2. So they're going to move quite a distance, just like Justin was saying. They're pretty fast, and they'll get in your grill really quickly. So I think he dialed up right in sidestepping there, because I was going to try and collide with her. I don't think I'd get that close, but I'd try anyway. So there's the 3.
In all honesty, there's a good chance he's probably going to be able to charge me anyway, but we'll see.
There we go.
All right. Yep, that's a...
So you see, they're really quick. They've moved quite a ways across the board in that first turn. So do you have any 7s?
I have a 7. And so this one, I'm going to reveal my cavalry. I put them at full speed ahead. I guess Ken had the same like-mindedness, so I'm kind of regretting. I kind of wish I programmed a charge. So that's one thing. Distinction is here. This is going to come into play here. I did a 4 forward, and I did then a bonus action 2, similar to what Ken did with the flesh rippers down over there. Now, so I'm going to go a 4 forward and a 2. Chances are my 4 is going to collide anyway, so this 2 is going to get canceled out based on the distance, and we're going to demonstrate that. But what I want to go back to with the charge is, if you notice that on my command dial, I have these certain symbols, these modifiers with the starburst symbol on the end. And that means that you plan on doing a charge. So had I programmed one of these charges, my cavalry would have been able to go in, collide with this unit, and perform an attack. Well, now these guys now what I just did, because I mismanaged them, bad general on my part, generalship on my part. So what I'm going to have to do now is I just got these guys collided with this big beastly monster, and they weren't ready for it. So now they're going to get panicked because of this. And let me go ahead and demonstrate the distance. So I got to do the 4 first before I do the 2. And as you can see, the 4 is going to already collide with them, so they're not going to even be able to do the 2. So I go straight and I hit up front. Now whenever you collide with another unit, you don't get you want to have to square up. This game kind of works is trying to keep everything nice and evenly balanced as possible, as far as trays being lined up nicely with trays. And that's a nice feature of the game, actually, because it keeps it clean. And if something gets bumped or moved, so a lot of times you can kind of tell where they're already at, and it's not a big deal. So we are going to square up. I get the option, because I'm between this tray, I could either shift this way or I could shift this way to square up. I'm going to choose this way, only because if I become victorious against the Spine Thresher, they have a clear path to kind of come around here. Now, my movement 2 bonus that I just programmed here is going to get canceled out, and on top of that, because I got them colliding with an enemy unit and they didn't have a charge, I'm going to take a panic token. And that panic token is basically a bad deal. These are one of the banes we were talking about earlier. And the more panic you accrue, the more you start becoming a risk of certain game effects from this panic deck, where it could be very detrimental to this unit and decrease my chances of being able to keep the unit in the fight and become less combat effective. So, well, that's that for the cavalry. Go ahead.
I have no other dials, so a lot of times when you actually run out of dials to show on one side, you'll just have the other individual work through their initiative all the way up to the rest of their dials. So go ahead and finish your dials.
Okay, so the next one I have is the Rune Golem. He programmed a 2, and remember, it goes back to having that stance of the white is a wild, so I can actually use this reform. This is known as a reform. This is a bonus action, and it's going to allow me, after I move, to be able to pivot around the center of the unit. And so I'm going to do march 2 forward and then do a pivot. Now notice there's not many turns on this dial, which we probably didn't really demonstrate too many as at this point. But that's the one downside of the Rune Golem, is that it's pretty much a move straight forward. So it really counts on that reform to be able to do something to get in line. So we're going to go 2 forward. And now I get to decide to use my bonus action, which that reform, to be able to pivot. Now I would look at this. There is a couple of things I have to be concerned about. Like, for example, if 3 red runes get flipped this next, or 4 red runes get flipped this next turn, this guy's going to come in and crash at me before I can do anything. So, but at the same time, I'm going to risk that, because I could possibly get a nice corner charge, which could end up being a flank on this unit, and that may not. That's pretty enticing if some red runes are rolled. So it's gonna. I'm kind of playing a gamble here, but that's going to be the way the game goes. So, okay, so that is all dials have been revealed. So then we go to the end phase. Now, this is where we would resolve any game effects. Sometimes some terrain causes game effects, such as damage or other things. In this case, there's nothing game effects on the board. So also, the objective might have a game effect that happens too. But since we don't have a specific objective for this scenario, this is just a smash mouth type of game. We're going to basically, the only thing we really have to worry about in the end phase. Well, Ravos, you have your wound ability, right?
This is actually before each end phase.
Okay.
So before is one of those keywords you kind of want to pay attention to. And I mentioned one earlier, it's must, and that's also in this bit of text for him. But it says, before each end phase, you must choose a unit in range 1, and it suffers one wound. Now, this is important to note that Ravos is always at range 1 of himself. Now, he's also at range 1 of some other units, so I'll be able to inflict a wound to a different unit, but I'm not in range 1 of any of his units. So what that means is I need to pick one of my units and actually
munch.
Right. And because it's an effect, I don't get to choose where it comes off.
Actually,
my opponent does.
The opponent chooses what the casualty comes. I'm going to go ahead and tell you to take it from that guy.
Okay, so we'll take one of our guys off here.
Yep.
He's the ever hungry. He's a chubby guy. He likes to eat. So
yep.
he just ate.
So he's got to be fed, even if it's his own troops. He'll feed him. He'll use him as food. All right, and so then that would mark the end phase, which means since Ken here there's no other game effects. Ken here is the first player. He's going to get the chance to flip the runes and then pass the turn dial towards me to represent me being the first player for this round.
Right. So we've got 2 blank, 2 stable, and 1 natural rune.
Oh, no reds, of course.
Which doesn't.
Ken did that on purpose.
I did. There you go. I'm going to pass the. So what I did, just to show you, is on this dial, it actually turns. So you can see that was round 1 there, and I'll go backwards to show you the very last numbers. So there's 8 rounds in a full game. We're going to go this way to round 2, and I'm going to pass this over to Justin.
Thank you.
So he now has initiative. Runes are cast. The initiative has been passed. We're going to go ahead and dial up for the next turn.
And the reason why I brought up the red runes being important is because I had this nice 4 ability where I was set up for a nice little corner charge on this there. But now, because there was no red runes rolled, this is basically a 0 on that 4 because you see the triangles there. So that kind of affected my game plan here. It was a gamble, and I just lost that gamble. And so now I've got to think of other means of what I should be doing here, because I'm pretty sure Ravos is going to eat on some rocks soon. This is a rune golem made of rock, just in case you didn't get the reference.
And just a little tip, one of the things I'm doing is I'm taking my range ruler out here, and if you measure from the 5, and each one of these is essentially one move forward. So I can kind of anticipate how far it's going to take me to hit this guy, and it looks like it's going to be about 4 for me to actually collide with him.
Yep. So the rune golem is probably not going to get highlighted too well this game, unless I can pull off some amazing things. But acceptable losses for the greater scheme of things. And the good news about this turn, and you can see that most games of RuneWars, combat dice start rolling pretty quick, whereas opposed to other tabletop miniature games. So you're going to start seeing dice rolling already this turn, and which is great because it helps speed up the game, and there's a lot more action that happens over those 8 turns, and it gets you in there. All right, so that's it's me now with initiative.
That's right.
And I'll be calling it out. Now, I don't have any 1s, but I also know you don't have any 1s, so we're just going to move on to 2, Ken. And in that case, as you well know, because Ken knows one of his most hated characters, I have a 2 with my carry. And carry, it's nice when a character has a 2, because the 2s are very high initiative value. It means it's really going first. And then this is her ability so that she can shoot at something. And then if you notice, I also plussed up her defense so that maybe she can weather that charge that's about to happen from these flesh rippers. So I'm going to go ahead and roll. Now, combat is going... This is where we're going to have to throw out the card and explain things. Now, I have 2 stats we have for Carrie in regards to offensive abilities. She has a range attack, and then she also has a melee. If you notice the little pips here, you have the white and the blue for her range attack. She also has a white and a blue for her melee. Now, that can be changed from character or unit to unit. These complete... In this case... They just happen to be the same. I just want to let you know. Now, this means that this is the dice I'm going to roll. I'm going to roll 1 white die and 1 blue die in order to attack the Flesh Rippers. Carrie also has a couple other special abilities that kind of augment her stuff. She has the rule Brutal 1 and Precise 1. Precise 1 basically means she counts as having an extra rank of traits in the back, which allows her to get a reroll. Brutal 1 means that she counts as actually having an extra tray in the front, which doubles the damage she does because she now count as 2 trays. If there was an ability that allowed you to have 3 trays, like if you were Brutal 2, so I add basically 2 more trays adjacent, then she would triple the damage if that was the case. In this case, she's just Brutal 1 and Precise 1, and we're going to go roll with that, and this is where hopefully our dice cam will show it pretty effectively. Rolling, and that actually is not too hateful. So if you look at the symbols here, I rolled, let's see, I rolled a damage and an accuracy on both dice. The accuracy only really comes into play if there was a special figure upgrade in the unit, and that means that I could actually assign a damage or a wound to that unit if I did enough damage to it. Whereas here, there's nothing special on these Flesh Rippers, so this is not going to come into play. And unfortunately, the accuracy is not going to come into play at all. But now, if you notice the little more explosive pips on the die, those represent damage. And what I just rolled now was 2 damage on those 2 dice. because I mentioned earlier that it's brutal 1, she effectively did 4 damage. So I'm going to be able to do 4 wounds to this unit because your defense is...
It's a 1.
It's a 1, and it's also on the front of the dial.
And they have 3 wounds
And they have 3 wounds each. So for every 1 damage I cause, they will take a wound. And so therefore, in order to mark the damage that is being done, the wounds being done, we're going to grab these wound tokens. And I'm going to, first off, you're going to actually remove one of those figures on the tray.
Where would you like me to remove it?
Let's go ahead and do that one.
Okay. So I'll take that. Again, he's damaging my unit.
Yep.
So.
And then we'll assign another wound
to the same tray.
To that same tray.
Okay.
And that will be, and that basically, because I need 2 more wounds to be able to remove that model, I can't remove that model this attack. I mean, that's still a pretty good roll. I'm not going to be too hateful about that. And the other benefit too, well, there's no really benefit other than now he's a little bit more weaker. If he gets 2 more wounds, this tray gets removed, and that reduces the combat effectiveness of this unit. Plus, it gives me victory points. So you actually get victory points. You don't have to kill a unit down to a man. You can just reduce them down by trays, and they'll count for victory point purposes as one set of trays less. And we can maybe talk about that later if we have time.
It'll show on the back of the cards how many points they're actually worth.
Yep. Okay. And that's that. Okay, so
that was a 2.
That was a 2. Do you have a 2?
No 2s.
All right. I will go for 3, which then will basically be me doing a stun to anything engaged. Now this is I'm using my special skill, and you notice I do a red, and I'm plussing up the defense. Now, how many blue runes are up there?
2.
All right, so I basically up my defense by 2 because we have 2 blue runes, and if you see the symbol, that's shield. So now he's counting as defense 6 because originally his defense is 4. It's a rock, so he's very defensive, and he's only got 2 wounds. That's going to hurt a little bit against Ravos, as you'll see later. But right now his defense is 6, so that's going to help him give him some protection. Now this is his special skill. With the Rune Golem, not going to come into play in this situation. I just programmed it so that I would be able to get his defense up to maybe brace for impact in a way. But his special ability would have allowed me to get 2 stun tokens to any unit engaged with him. And it would have been 2 stun tokens because it goes by blue rune numbers, which since we have 2 showing, it would have been 2 stun tokens, which is a beautiful thing. Stun is a bane, and it's a very annoying bane in that regards. But that's not going to come into play here, so we're just going to move on forward. There's my 3. Do you have it? No 3s?
No 3s.
Okay, so I'm going to continue with my 3s, and yet here's my other 3, and I just did a rally again because I'm expecting him to come in here and charge my spearmen. So again, this is about bracing for impact. Daqan, you'll find, are very static. They're very armored. They're about trying to take the onslaught and then return it back. And so that's what's going to happen. And since I don't have any Banes again, I get to go ahead and give myself another inspiration token, which might come into play later. We'll see. And I'm just going to go ahead and plus up my defense. Now, I neglected to mention that if I was not able to reveal these dials and get my defense up before my opponents charge me, I won't get the bonus of the defense. But now, since I have them revealed, I have the bonus of the defense. So all my guys counts as defense 2, which means he has to do 2 damage to be able to remove 1 model to my guys, which is going to make it harder for him to do. Okay, so that was my 3. Any more 3s?
No 3s for me still.
Okay, and I yet have another 3. Daqan are very good at the 3s, especially with melee and striking first. And this goes back to now my cavalry. Now, if you'll see here, I've got a melee symbol. Those are the cross swords that you see. And a +1 white defense. So I've upped my defense. That's the nice thing about the Daqan cavalry is that they can strike really early and up their defense so that they can kind of not get hit as hard back. So now, normally my cavalry are 2 defense. With this +1, they're going to be 3 defense, and you can see that right here, the 2 and the 1. And so what's going to happen is they are going to be able to roll their attack. Cavalry have 2 red dice and a blue to do damage. So that's what I'm going to roll is 2 red and a blue onto a spine thrust unit. And actually, that is not bad at all. I like rolls like that. Let's put it that way. So what I just did, if you'll see there, there's 3 damage pips total on those red dice. You'll also notice right here on, let me try to move that die right here. On this die right here, there's a swirly symbol there that represents a panic. So I'm going to be able to give the benefit of a panic, and I have my own panic deck, and I'm going to be able to draw that, and after I resolve the damage, and basically resolve a panic effect on this unit, assuming that I have a high enough strength to do it. So with this 3 damage pips that I just drawn, I did a total of 6 damage. Because remember when I told you about that additional tray bonus? Well, this cavalry unit right now is a 2-tray unit, and since they are 2 trays, they double the damage pips that I have. Since I have 3 pips, it becomes 6 damage. What is the defense of the Spine Thresher?
2.
2, and as you can see, it's 2 defense, but where they are lacking in defense a little bit, they have lots of wounds. So I only was able to accomplish 3 wounds on the Spine Thresher, so the Spine Thresher is going to stay around to be able to do an attack back, and that's going to, with this panic token, that's going to kind of stink, but you know, hey, it is what it is. Go ahead and assign yourself 3 damage.
Okay.
And then I will resolve by the panic, and I flip a coin. I flip a card. Now here's the problem. I only rolled 1 panic symbol, and I didn't have any panic tokens here, so the strength of this panic is only going to be 1. Well, unfortunately, the card I just drew has 2 panic symbols, so that means I have to add at least a strength 2 to be able to resolve that panic, to be able to resolve this game effect. So this becomes a worthless card for me, and I set that aside.
So it just gets discarded.
Yep, it gets discarded, so it will never be seen for the rest of the game.
Well, he is done with all of his dials. So
Yep.
I'm going to move on to doing my dials at this
Yes.
point.
So, yeah, you go in the order of your initiative. So we stopped at 3, and you can go ahead and call it. And so this is one of those rare situations where, since I'm already done and I did everything, he's basically going to do things on his own. Yep. He still has to activate in the order of his initiative, though. He can't just do things.
Because sometimes you'll move a unit, and you'll make mistakes. But sometimes you'll move a unit at one initiative that's a little bit too early, and you had another unit that was planning to move, and maybe they were turning, and then they collide. So you want to pay attention to the initiative. You want to resolve in that initiative. So if you did dial something up as a mistake, that actually gets the opponent gets the benefit of your mistake. I'm going to start with my flesh rippers over here on this side. I actually thought you were going to do something else. I didn't think you were going to shoot. But I've got to do that one move forward, that mandatory move. So I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter anyway.
It's not going to matter. They're not going to get engaged with you.
Okay.
So they slide forward 1. They take their wound with them. I'll reveal the dial. The dial is actually a combat. I was expecting him to charge me because he actually had the initiative on me. So I was going to try and hit him back. So effectively, I swing and miss in the air. Nothing happens.
Okay.
Okay. So that's.
I'm happy with that result.
Of course.
And that's the thing that happens is you got to be able to predict what your opponent is. Sometimes there's this mind game to it, and that's and I've been bitten more often than not on that one.
Yep. So there's that anticipation. That's kind of the chess match that happens. I thought he was going to do one thing. He did something else. He still delivered some damage. I'm showing you my my Spine Thresher dial right here. It's an attack back at the knights, so they're going to swing. I'll show you their cards so you can see how many.
And they have a brutal modifier here. If you notice here, he gets a free damage pip automatically, and you're already brutal 1, right? So he's counted as a 2-tray unit. So right now, he already just did 2 damage with me just by revealing that modifier right there. And he is attacking in initiative 4, and there's the cross swords, and we're going for it.
And what they actually get to do is they actually get to re-roll as well, as long as he has a panic token.
Which I do.
He has a panic token. They'll get a 1 dice reroll. Now they roll 2 red dice. I don't know if you caught that, but down by their melee symbol, that's the only symbol they have. They're not a ranged unit at all.
I'll show that too. 2 red dice. It's really hard to see on this card because it's a red, but you can see the 2 red pips.
Roll the dice. So he's got a double hit, a panic.
Goodbye.
And then I've got another hit and panic like Justin just showed you.
Yeah, that's going to hurt.
So like he said, his threat is considered a 2 because he's brutal. He's brutal 1, so you add 1.
It's funny because your reroll's not going to even come into play.
No reroll. I'm not going to reroll any of that. I'm going to keep that right there.
Right.
I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but that's a fantastic roll.
So he has a total of 3 damage. You see the 3 damage pips, the starburst symbols,
Plus
and
the
then
1 on the dial.
and then you got the 1 on the dial, so that's 4 damage, and he counts as brutal 1 of having 2 trays. So that basically becomes 8 damage. So that is like, ouch. Now, the only reason my unit is still going to stay on the board right now is because I plussed up their defense. If I did not plus up their defense, this unit would have been wiped out because they're 2 defense each base, and he did 8 damage. So it would have been 2, 4, 6, 8. All 4 would have been dead. But since he did 8 damage, and each of these guys now count as 3 defense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right.
3 guys are going to die. Now he gets to choose where those casualties go.
I'm going to take this entire tray off. And
All right.
like he said, that last 2 is not going to break his defenses, so they just get ignored, kind of bounce off. But one of the nice things I do have is I have a panic token on his unit.
Yep.
I have a panic token on my dial, and I've got a panic token on the dice. So I'm going to get to draw that many panic cards, and I'm going to do just that. So I'll spend that token. He'll take that off the unit to show that it's been spent, and I'll flip the 3 cards. So I've got 1, 2,
Ouch.
and 3.
And since he did, this is known as a strength 3 panic check. So that basically means he's got the one from the dial, the one from the dice, and this token that he is spending. But his ability is going to let me get that token back. And so that means he gets to draw 3 cards and resolve up to a strength 3 panic check. Now,
So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give
down
him
more.
Rising
There you go.
Panic, which is the unit's going to receive 2 more panic tokens.
Ouch.
Okay. All of the cards that I drew were only required 1 panic token. So I'm going to go ahead and place some more on him, just in case he ends up surviving. Your last horse, he should still be alive, because I only did 8 damage.
You're right. Okay.
So,
Well, that's
and
making
you
me feel a little bit
plussed up.
better.
There you go. So you got a full tray.
Yep, my bad. Yep.
All right, so I'm going to continue on with my moves. The next one's going to be a 4. It's going to be a 2 forward with a turn for the
Ooh.
Berserkers. So I did not charge. just like I
Again,
anticipated.
unexpected. Well, I was expecting Ravos. I figured would be charging.
Oh yeah, he'll be coming towards you.
Yep.
Get this guy out.
A little tight.
There we
yeah.
go.
There we go.
So now I can go one of 2 ways. Either I can take my unit this direction.
Yeah. And so
And
I'll tell you
slide
what.
him
Why
this
don't you
way.
use the 2 here because this is double-sided.
Okay.
Okay. So and I guess let me go ahead and explain the turning here. So the turning here, this is a light turn. You also have the options of the harder turns, which is this shape. It's more of a 90-degree type turn. In this case, he's doing a light turn. Often you'll
gonna
see
go that
this
way.
modifier here be accompanied by a number like a +1 or -1 or something like that. And in this case, these guys are very mobile, so they don't have any modifiers that are negative to allow them to turn. So they actually get a nice, clean 2 turn, just like you see there. And that turned out to be really great for Ken here. And he's totally masterminding, outmaneuvering me today.
I don't
Which,
know about that.
well, other than that, this is where, because I already know that he can do the 3 and be in that position. So or he can just charge me next round, and I can't really do much about it. So I'm just going to have to brace for impact again.
So Ravos has an initiative 8, move forward 4, and I don't think you did do the 4 forward with a knight. So he also has on his modifier dial, he's got a charge dialed up.
Yep.
So I'm trying to hit his rune golem that I measured out with my range ruler a little bit earlier, and you should see that that'll collide just beautifully with him. And then, just like Justin was explaining earlier, I'm going to go ahead and square my unit up to his, slide so we're all squared up, everything's nice and pretty, and then I'm going to roll his attack. So he gets to do, on a charge, he gets to take advantage of his attack. And he's got a white dice, a red dice, and a blue dice. So we'll go ahead and roll those dice. Do you have a white dice over there?
I do have a
steal
white
from
dice.
you.
Go ahead. Yep.
All right, so we'll get his roll in there.
This is going to hurt. It's right.
He's brutal also.
Yep.
So he's got quite a bit of armor to get through, so I might be able to do 1 wound. And he's got 2 blanks here, so that's not too good for me. But he does have precise, which allows me to re-roll
in your all
of the
dice at least once.
or whichever dice I choose. So I'm going to choose these 2 blanks. I'm going to keep that hit, and I'm going to try and see if I can't get. Actually, I'm going to gamble, because this one does have a mortal, which would get through all that defense right away, and allow me to damage him. So I'm going to re-roll all 3 dice and see what I get. So I got another blank. I got a hit. I've got a surge and another hit. So what's nice with Ravos, he's a character, so he has a lot of powerful abilities. And one of his unique abilities is each enemy at range 1 suffers 1 wound when you spend a surge. And I think this will be the first instance that we're going to spend that surge to deal directly to him a wound. And nobody else is at range 1 of me. And this is enemies, not allies. So I'm not looking to my allies. So the Rune Golem will receive 1 wound. The other 2 damage is only 4, so that's going to bounce right off of that rock.
Because I'm at defense 6. Now, if I didn't plus on my defense, I would have actually taken another wound, and the Rune Golem would have been dead. But as is, I'm taking 1, and chances are
he'll be dead at the
Ravos
end
is going to feast by the end of the turn, feast on
right.
on some rocks.
So that's it for my dials. I have nothing else to.
And
to
I'm all
resolve.
done. So before the end phase.
Before the end phase, he'll deal 1 wound.
Yep. So
using his
Ravos goes num, and I automatically take that wound despite my defense. Can't do anything about it. And so the Rune Golem is now removed from play, which is so sad that that's the case. But it is what it is, and hopefully his sacrifice will not be in vain.
So that was the end phase, or before the end phase. Move into the end phase. Justin will cast the tokens, and then we'll pass the dial. And this will probably be the last.
And this will be our last turn. And this is actually, I think, a good example of how the game's played out. And this is probably going to be a big turn too. That will decide a lot of things. So that works out. So there's turn 3, and he'll go and flip the runes, find out what we get. Although I don't know the runes are going to be as much impactful for the rest of this game. Ooh, we got 4 red and 2 blue. So I miss my Rune Golem right now.
Yeah. He could have moved quite a ways.
Indeed.
Now I think it's once you're in combat, there's not too much mystery to probably what will happen. Although the elves are a little bit shifty and they can jump in and out of combat pretty effectively, so you got to watch out for them.
All right. Now what to do with your berserkers? Because I know you can charge me. Whew. It's making me make tough decisions. That's for sure.
This is usually the quiet part of the game. We're all thinking, so our brains are working, talking to ourselves in our head.
It's a Zen-like experience.
Okay.
All right, call it out.
So I'll start with the initiative.
Yep.
There are no 1s, so we'll go ahead and skip that one. Do you have any 2s?
I do have a 2.
All right, Carrie's going to shoot at me again.
Yep. And again, same thing. I plus on my defense, and I'm shooting at those flesh rippers. I'm trying to reduce the goal is I want to do at least 2 damage to reduce a tray, so that their damage, so the chance of those flesh rippers actually killing Carrie gets greatly reduced.
She needs 1 hit marker to do that.
And
she's got
I did that, and I rolled some great surges. And Carrie has a great surge ability, but unfortunately only works when she's in close combat. So, but I did at least get my 2 damage, which will remove that tray.
Precise, is she not?
She is precise, so I guess I could re-roll. Thanks for reminding me. And there we go. I'll take it. So there's another 2 damage. So we'll assign 2 more wounds to this next tray here.
Okay.
That's not too hateful.
In fact, we'll take the whole tray off here. Okay.
All right. And that's my 2.
So I'll go for a 3.
Go with 3.
My 3 is going to be a 1 forward with the berserkers.
Yep.
Slide that up, and then it is a charge.
Yep.
So you'll see I'm going to clip the edge of these spearmen unless I'm seeing things way off.
No, and honestly, we don't even have to measure it out.
Okay.
We're just going to hit there,
They're so
and then
close.
you'll square up like this.
And I'll slide down to that
slide down
first
so
stop.
the first stop, right.
Yep.
And you'll hit me. And this is his charge.
So I'll go ahead and roll a red and a blue. That's what the berserkers roll. I think you get the idea of checking the cards there. And we got a nice roll going on here.
Ouch.
So I'll keep that.
Yes.
I could re-roll because I have an extra rank, but I'm going to keep that. So they're going to do 3 damage.
Times 2 for 2 trays in the front.
Is going to be their threat, is what we call their threat. 2 trays.
Yep.
So that's going to be 6 damage to his spearmen, which are 1 by 1.
And then right now I'm only defense 1. So I'm for each damage I take, it's 1 wound. So therefore, you remove 6 models.
Before I even do that, I'm going to actually kill 2 of my own guys to add a little bit of lethality to
aggressive.
This. So one of their traits is during a combat or a melee action, you may suffer 1 wound to gain lethal 1 for this combat limit twice per combat. So I'm going to go ahead and suffer both of those wounds and take him off, I'm assuming the same tray because he's assigning these.
Yep.
So the same tray, he's going to try and whittle this tray down, and that'll take off his entire back rank.
Yep. And that, yeah. So basically, I'm now. If I had any kind of reroll mechanics, they are gone because having no back rank basically is the same as that precise one. And so therefore, having no back rank means that if I roll dice and I whiff, I'm stuck with it at this point.
That's why I did it. So hopefully he rolls poorly. He doesn't do enough damage to remove my last standing model on this tray, which would prevent him from getting the points for that unit.
Just for the sake of games.
Okay, he just redialed because he's a cheater.
Can't do that, but it showed the example here.
Right.
Otherwise, I wanted to show other features of the
Sure,
unit here.
Sure,
So.
show away. So that was one of my threes. Do you have any threes?
I do have 1-3 here.
He's going to hit my
Go here.
Could be taking him out.
We'll see. So I plus up my defense again, and hopefully Ken doesn't roll a really good roll like he did last time. But
I don't know if I even get to roll.
yeah, I still got to do 4 damage on 3 dice, which is going to be tough.
With a threat 1?
Yeah, threat 1. So there's some positives on this one. It's not the greatest positive. I do get, since they have an inspiration ability for my cavalry, I rolled 2 surges, and those are the lightning bolt symbols that you'll see. And with my cavalry, during a melee, if I roll 2 surges, I get an inspiration token. So I get 1 boon. I won't be able to use this inspiration token to get rid of a panic until next turn, unfortunately. So it's not going to come into play. But the 2 damage does do at least 1 wound to him. So now he is 1 wound away from being taken off the table. And I'm just now with my up defense. As long as he doesn't roll more than 6 damage or more, I can possibly finish this unit off. But we'll see what happens.
Okay, so that was a 3. Do you have any more 3s?
No more 3s.
All right, so I'll go ahead and hit back with my 4. Again, dialed up the same way. Like I said, pretty predictable once you get into combat. So I'm going to go ahead and roll his 2 red. Swing at him.
Ouch!
On
fire! Didn't even need the modifier. Okay, so the unit gets eliminated. It is done.
So that'll remove that. I'll collect all the points for that unit, but I'm running the rest of the game on 1 wound left. So there's a good chance he would die in this game. So that's a 4. Do you have any 4s?
So nope, no force. I'm just going to straight out tell him I don't have anything till 7, so he can, if he, and now normally this is more of a courtesy. Not always the best idea to tell your opponent that because that can be a tell, but for the friendliness and the sake of speed of this game, I'm going to just give him the heads up so that he can proceed forward.
So what I'm doing is the mandatory move forward. This is the next 4 that I have.
Yep.
So they collided with Carrie. They're going to slide. You can see they're all the way to the right, but they've got to slide all the way to the left because they hit her in the front, and it's going to be a front charge. If you get a flank, you get to add an extra dice, which is desirable, but it just doesn't happen when you have an automatic movement. So what I did was collided with her, same as the knights did before. I'm going to go ahead, we just keep using your tokens so they're all the same. I'm going to go ahead and add their panic token because they receive a panic for colliding without a charge. Then I'm going to reveal their dial. Now what I did is a tricky move with these guys where instead of dialing a charge, I dialed an attack. Now that my dial is revealed, they're a 1 threat, no reroll, but they get to do that attack. So they're gonna take a swing and carry. And they roll 2 blue, 1 red. Here's their roll. They've got 2 surges, an accuracy which does nothing, a damage, and a panic check.
Okay.
So the damage is going to bounce off. It's 1 damage.
Because he doesn't have 2 trays anymore, so he's only threat 1.
Right.
So it's
threat
only 1.
So your threat is determined by the columns of your tray. So 2 columns, 2 threat.
Yep.
1 column, 1 threat. So
and each of those surges would cause 1 damage, right?
So that's it's plus. So it's damage plus. So
okay.
Their surge ability is a surge plus, and it says choose an enemy engaged with you. It suffers damage equal to the surge spent. So I've got a surge on their modifier dial, so that's 1, and I've rolled 2 more, so that's going to be 3 damage.
Okay.
So I'll deal 3 damage to Carrie. Does that do a wound to her?
No,
she a 4?
In this case, well, she's normally a 3 defense, but remember I plus her defense up by 1, so she effectively became a 4 defense. So that the surge it gets tallied up. Now, that's not damage in addition to the damage he already rolled. Otherwise, he would have been able to do damage. So he did 1 damage. It bounces off his armor, and then he resolves his surge ability, which was a total of 3 damage, which would have still bounced off her because he needed at least 4 to be able to.
So you can see how valuable it is to plus up if you're expecting combat.
Yep.
Now, I do have a morale symbol there, or a panic symbol there.
So that might be something.
Panic symbol on my dial. Yep. So I'm going to do a 2 panic check on her.
1 from the dial, 1 from the die. That's why, just to
dial,
clarify that. Oh, and we've got 2 2s.
So I've got a 2 and I've got a 1. Is she steadfast anything?
She is not steadfast anything.
So steadfast would cause me to have to spend an extra token.
Right.
The 2 is a unit performs a reform. You make all the decisions for this action. Interesting, because I just mentioned that it's so nice to get somebody in a flank. I'm going to go ahead and reform her and face her away from my unit. So
and that kind of hurts.
Collided with her in the rear there.
That is a hurtful thing. One of the benefits of this, not only does he get a bonus die when he attacks me the next round, but on top of that, Carrie, if she attacks back on this unit, is not going to get any rerolls because they lose the precise ability. So whenever you are flanked, you lose the reroll ability, just to or a hit in the rear. So that's just something to kind of keep a track of. Keep in mind when you're playing this game. There is a very big benefit to flanking a unit and getting into that side because the chances of them being able to do damage return to you gets greatly diminished.
So this is, I dialed this one purposely because this is Ravos, this is his 4. I just wanted to show kind of what would happen. I pushed the runes back here to show that we have 4 unstable. I've got a 4 unstable March dialed up with a hard, I call it a hard turn, and it's a -1. So 4 runes minus 1 is going to be a 3 hard turn. Well, there's no such thing as a 3 hard turn in this game.
It only goes up to 2.
What you do is you go to the highest available.
And I got 1 here. I can just use it.
And he's just gonna.
This is clearly going to be on the side, in the flank.
There, I'm going to flank
and just
spearman.
Now I would to be more careful when I normally move this template, and I did line it up here. But because it's going to be a collision, I'm just going to go ahead and line it up and square it up like that. Now, he didn't actually do a charge with this, though. So since there's no charge, he actually takes a panic for this, and he won't get an attack after this movement.
So I'll take a panic, and I'll go ahead and set the panic out there to just stay true to the game here.
And just to refresh, the charge would have been if there was a starburst symbol on the like in case you see it right here. So
he's now engaged in their side. Before the end phase, I would go ahead and eat one of his spearmen. That would take 1 model off. It's not going to change the count of the trays, which would go into the points, but it would actually affect the game because we're only on round 3.
And so it comes back to me. Now, normally my guys can attack on a 3, but I couldn't have dialed that against him because he was charging me on 3, and so I would not have gotten much of a hit back. And so what we have here is a late damage 7 melee with a damage modifier. This goes back to now, since I don't have this back tray, the back tray of ranks, I don't get a reroll, and their attack is a blue and a red, and it's just basically going to be 1 damage times 2, 2 damage times 2 because of the modifier. So I did 4 more damage, which would have removed another tray, essentially. Okay. And then that would basically call, that's our turn 3. And I think for the purpose of this game and demonstration, there's a lot that could have possibly happened here. I would say the game is still slightly in Ken's favor, maybe a little more so slightly, but with Ravels coming here going num-num. But I did have initiative next round, and so there were some other game effects that could have come in, and maybe I could have helped clear out these spearmen, and it could have been a game between Ravels and Carrie. Although I would put Ravels in that fight any day, so yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Please leave feedback if you want to see more demonstrations or more. We'll go more in depth or breakdowns. But please feel free to use this. Questions. Please post questions on this site.
If we played something incorrectly, if you saw that we did something, you know this game, and you saw that we did something incorrect, let us know. We'll put a notification up on the video, so that way we can flag where that error occurred, and that way anybody watching this can actually benefit from your knowledge as well.
And again, thanks for joining us, and I hope you're able to use this as a great tool to help other players get into the game. It's a fantastic game. It's a lot of fun. There's a whole hobby. If you notice today, we wanted to put our painted figures out there because there's a whole hobby aspect to it, which just gives an endless supply of, you get more out of the game than just the game.
There's a pageantry.
Yeah, exactly. A pageantry. That's a great way to put it. All right. Thank you very much, and signing off.